Parade, a cleansing rain, torrential, flooding the town and surrounding areas for weeks until finally the sun rises and the earth, refreshed, begins to suck up the water in large, belching quaffs. Also from the east comes a circus caravan led by a ringmaster of renown, his mustachio ends waxed into permanent exclamations, perfectly rounded O's. Charles Lemagne, Monsieur Loyal. Beside him, on the bench seat of his extravagantly painted wagon, his young daughter, a contortionist, perches on her forearms, slight buttocks resting on her head, slender legs extended forward like antennae. She appears to be mesmerized by the steady motion of the draft horses, her eyes fixed on the flexing rhythm of their muscular flanks and the pendular swing of their scrotums. She is thinking of the circus strongman whose love has proven inconstant. The road ahead is lined with townsfolk, cameras loaded and poised, necks craning for a first glimpse of the costumed performers and the cages of exotic animals. Smile, Piccolo, the ringmaster roars, standing up to crack his bullwhip over the heads of the plodding horses. It's showtime! The Protocol of Curtsy in the Soviet Darkuil. It's a rat's tune, childlike in its tender irony and timid styling. Born of the cataclysmic events of world wars, it sways uneasily in the mysterious presence of Our Lady of Lowliness. Still, there is something communal in how it leans into the abstract dimensions of music and holds, like the impulse of verse, to a different order of reality, discontinuous and disturbing, inviting the listener to reconstruct the composer's original perceptions. See the little American girl in her navy blue sailor jacket, pleated white skirt and knee stockings. See her curtsy and hear the stowaway rats squeal with applause. Now listen to the forlorn blasts of the foghorn as her tiny steamboat disappears into the stormy sea. And watch, yes, watch if you can, as the child herself sinks, sinks, sinks below the waves, her eyes and lips forming surprisingly perfect O's. When you introduce me to the foreign defense minister's wife, fashionable in her pearls and floor-length furs, say I greet her, my belly to the ground, the unpaid piper of Arcoyel. Jack in the Box. Jacques, a young entrepreneur, returns to Paris having made his fortune in the Texas oil fields. He has taken to wearing a 10-gallon hat and a pair of cowboy boots that make him appear taller than he is. He wastes no time in seeking out his favorite brothel in Montmartre and is greeted with enthusiasm by the heavy-breasted proprietress. We have a young beauty newly arrived from Provence, she says, one who smells of wild thyme and lavender. She too is well-traveled, mon brave, and may be yours for the night à bon prix. He gladly pays the going rate and hastens up the stairs, 2 steps at a time, the impact of his boots sending the hallway cats scurrying in all directions. Entering the scented room, he is awestruck by the vision before him. Half-dressed, her warm smile capturing his heart and stiffening his resolve. Ooh la la! Monsieur has a huge hat on, she laughs, running an index finger down the buttons of his shirt to the top of his belt buckle. Then, flicking the brim of his hat with the same finger, she purrs. Let me see, chérie, what I can do to get it off. And while Jacques busily reaps the bounty of the southern regions, La Belle de Provence walks in her mind from the bed to the window, from the window to the Seine, from the Seine to the ocean and the edge of the world and beyond to the last known galaxy where God sits alone, her back to it all, thinking she should introduce Gabriel to enharmonic spellings and chronometric form, his horn playing lacking the depth of an expanding universe. Crime Passionnel, a mystery in 5 parts. 1. My dog found a finger in the park, a long, slender finger, the kind that plays piano. Next day she found an ear. Holding it to my ear, I heard the drowned strings of orchestras. There were crows in the trees. I called the police. We went to the park. My dog unearthed a voice. When I picked it up, a song escaped. Carried on the wind, it startled the crows. 2. The inspector suspects foul play. Wants to question my dog. Wants to question me too. Love me, I said. Love my dog. His eyes narrowed, studied me intently. He was dusting for fingerprints. 3. My dog has a talent for her newfound mission. Uncanny, but evidently not uncanine. Even in the most inclement weather, or at night, particularly at night, when there are shadows in the park, and whispers, choruses and choruses, whispering. 4. The inspector has assembled the findings. The rib cage is too small to be human, he says. Wouldn't fit a songbird, let alone a heart. I said, there are more species of songbirds in 1 square mile of Amazon rainforest than in the rest of the entire world. His eyes narrowed, fixed on mine. He flipped open his notepad, drew a line through Crime Passionnel. 5. Today my dog found a heart, a small, timid heart, beating adagio, the way a heart beats when it has reason to hide itself from those it loves. Prises, jeux d'échecs et bateaux sur les toits. A chamber ensemble in formal black attire plays Mozart's quintet in A major for clarinet, viola, 2 violins, and a cello. The musicians are positioned along a sturdy wooden plank that is carefully balanced on the top of an outcrop, a barrier reef some distance from the shoreline. A casual observer might think the 5 performers cormorants or sooty terns were it not for the magnificence of their playing. A young girl rose by the musicians in a dory. The determined expression on her tear-stained face inspires their performance. Earlier that same day, she was told by her grieving mother that her father had died during the night from complications of a prolonged illness. A stranger to death, her plan now is to row her sorrow far out to sea and drop it into the waves. She remembers how once she watched through the fragrant wisteria at the family's summer home as an uncle lowered a sack of newborn kittens into a moonlit lake, breaking the spell of its mirrored surface. Later that night, back in her attic bedroom, she dreamt she had drowned trying to save the kittens. She knows now you never die in a dream. At least, you don't die, though you could die in your sleep and never wake from the dream of waking from a dream. Rewriting silence. Old heat this, burnt and scaly dry. In these hills, old rock, give or take. Once a gateway for migrant species, the soil here is trodden, a timeless witness to af and if, reen, leaf, green. But it can't sustain us. Not all of us. It needs time to recover from our ilk of ape. So here then is my modest proposal. Let's you and I devolve arm in arm into being, counterclockwise to the drive of that primordial gangbang we've come to lock loins with, and slide back on our bellies into the ocean's flesh, the seminal quiet of our history, pulled by a force more immense than moons or constellations, and so far beyond our appetites, even for lust, were we to parse its silent splendor, we might mistake it for poetry.